Getting beat up by 9 guys in Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jarod Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line.
I have received an email.
Don't forget to email the show at heeltotheface@hotmail.com.
Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett. Because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah, new Jarod. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 more. Oh yeah.
Tweet us using the handle @HeelToTheFace.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jarod.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
Heel to the Face podcast is on the air for the first week of October 2017, as we are leading up this week to Hell in a Cell on the WWE Network. On the phone lines, typing away, as always, it seems like. I think this is like the 4th straight week. I've just heard nothing but keys on the other end. It's Paul Boy Green Esden, myself, Jarod, just Jarod Wicks, and Icebreaker Brandon Clements. You can find us and the program on Twitter at Heel to the Face, HEEL, not HEAL. That really didn't need to be explained. So let's just get to some wrestling here.
Well said.
Let's get to some wrestling here to start off the show. And I'm going to be honest with you. I love wrestling, and we do the show every single week. But this week seemed like, why shows have season finales? Why wrestling's a television show. I mean, nobody here is going to debate that it's a sport. It's episodic. You know, they always say about Raw being, the most episodic show in cable history, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
This is why they have season finales, because it just felt that this week of professional wrestling, or at least in terms of WWE, and to be honest with you, there wasn't really anything else going outside of WWE. I looked, Ring of Honor, NXT, not really much going on in that world. And like I said, it could have had the week off. There just wasn't a lot of things that really progressed.
It was a bad week.
The highlight of the week was, SmackDown is 2 hours, Raw is 3 hours. Let's take that 5 hours. I liked 4 minutes.
I'll be honest. The only thing I enjoyed this whole stretch here is the Enzo Amore. He on the end of Raw on Monday night, he's sitting there. All the cruiserweights are around him in the squared circle, and he just starts ripping each one. He looks at one, rips, next one rips. That was the most riveting thing on WWE programming this week, to be honest with you.
What is your opinion on this 2 weeks in a row? I guess the final segment of Raw, because, we're not watching Raw because of matches. Raw's a show. Raw's a show of both promos and matches. So, essentially, the last segment is the main event. And even said himself, I'm on the main event of Raw, even though he's not in an actual competition.
Yeah,
he's just talking 2 weeks in a row.
He's just cutting a promo at the end of the show.
He's in the main event of Raw 2 weeks in a row. What do you take? What is your opinion on Enzo and the cruiserweights being in the main event of Monday Night Raw for a second straight week?
I think I'm okay with it because, it's been a really stale week, and last week I kind of felt the same way. I will say this. It shows to me where he's money. Enzo is money. So why would you have the face? He's the new face. I don't care, King of the Cruiserweights, whatever you want to say. The face of 205 Live is now Enzo Amore. Not only is he the champion, correct, yes, but he is the face. He is not the most polished in-ring competitor, but he is by far the most entertaining person from all I would say the whole cruiserweight division. Does he have the flashy moves like some of the guys in the cruiserweights? No. He just has the biggest personality, and I think he's so look at the fans. You have fans cheering, you have fans booing, and he is getting run. I think he's going to hang on to that title for a while. That's one of those things where Enzo is money. He's making so much money for WWE as a on merchandise sales. This is what they're doing. It's a money move. Plus, he's entertaining. But I like the final part of the show where we get to see a little Shield reunion, little preview. I think we all expected that from last week's show. I think that was kind of the foregone conclusion, but it was cool. You see Reigns back there, kind of in the locker room, kind of shaking things off a little bit. and then you see Dean come in. You know, they don't even say anything. It was like the best. That was like the best way to go out. Like they just kind of, you know, he looks at Dean, Dean looks at him, and then Dean kind of looks over, and there's Seth. Seth looks at him, and it's like the seeds are planted, man. It was a great way to go out. I personally loved how that was. That was the best way to cut a promo without even saying a word.
No, I like that. I like the promos a lot of times where there's no talking, where it's just kind of like things implied. I think those are some of the best promos. Sticking with the Enzo thing a little bit, I want to get Paul in here. What was your opinion of the reveal of the one cruiserweight who didn't have this clause and could touch Enzo? The disappointing, no matter if you make him in the main event of Monday Night Raw. I'm sorry, I just don't jump on board with Kalisto. What is your opinion on Kalisto kind of being this big surprise on Raw and or being in the last segment of Raw?
Well, here's ultimately what it came down to, and I need you guys to visualize this, and I think you'll thank me later. So I'm laying in bed, and my woman's about to get home, and I am ready for sexual pleasure. And I think what I think is going to happen doesn't happen. I think a three-way is about to happen between me and two other females. And what ends up happening is that two hairy men walk into the room. That was the kind of buzzkill I experienced when watching wrestling this week. Because when Kurt Angle said, that doesn't apply to this wrestler I just signed, and I'm like, okay, who do we got here? Are we going to go with some nostalgia factor? Is there a young upriser from Japan, a different country,
NXT?
A different promotion? Yeah, right. Could even NXT, and then Kalisto. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Paul,
and then he comes. It was just a joke.
I think the cruiserweights, to me, are not really deserving of this main event status that they're getting right now in Raw. But I will say, this is one way where I could definitely say that this deserved main event status. If he says this doesn't apply to this one cruiserweight, and out came Rey Mysterio. Then I would have been like, this deserved to be the last segment of Raw. Absolutely.
Hell, I would have been happier with Spike Dudley at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
you go nostalgia a little bit. Spike
I would
Dudley,
be
I'd like to
happy
see.
with a Kalisto caliber wrestler that at least is not been on wrestling in a while. Kalisto, to me, he doesn't do it. I don't care.
No, Kalisto, he's a great competitor, but he's not to me. I mean, it's all in ring, which is great. He's a great competitor, but he doesn't have really that personality. Like he does his little thing with his hands and stuff. But it's like, to me, it was a buzzkill.
The kids love Kalisto. The kids love Kalisto, and let me tell you one thing about Kalisto is that
he's as
if
tall
the
as the
kids
kid.
love Kalisto, how many kids outside of those that were in attendance do you think are watching Monday Night Raw in your last segment? That's how Raw used to be back in the day. There was a reason why Raw was from 9 to 10, and then it was considered a Warzone from 10 to 11 because Raw was still in the primetime family hours, and Warzone was in the more like adult hours.
Yeah,
that's why if you watch Raw back in 1998, you notice that the good stuff that you remember happened between 10 and 11.
The last segment of the show. The last hour, yeah.
That's why, and believe me, this is a question I still don't understand. It makes no sense to me at all, but if you all watch wrestling, after every single hour, they put up that little credit in the corner, as in like the show is ending and a new show is starting, because that's what it used to be back in the day.
It's just the same thing.
Yeah, I don't understand why they still do that. Back in the day, Raw and Warzone were two separate shows, and the credit came up saying like Raw is now over and Warzone is now beginning.
The only thing I can think of, and I mean, we as all, as radio guys, the only thing I can think of, it's maybe, it's not like obviously like you hear legal IDs for like,
but they don't do it on SmackDown.
I know that's why
they don't do it in the middle of a pay-per-view.
I could see it like that.
Like the first hour of WrestleMania is over.
It's kind of like a legal thing. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, it's not like they're going to fire this is WWE on USA Network. They're not going to do that. But I think it's. I mean, that's how I would imply it.
But that's how it originally started. It originally started because Raw was technically actually only on from 9 to 10. Warzone from 10 to 11. And the reason for that is because from 10 to 11, they were pretty much aware that anybody who's watching this show
guys like us watching
is older. Yeah. Okay, so this is when we can pull out the Sable pulling off her top and the bikini contest and all this other stuff from the 10 to 11 hour.
Because you're not expecting kids to be watching it at that time.
Okay, so I mean the same can still be applied. Because let's say this didn't happen till about 11 o'clock because it goes off the air at about 11:15. So at 11 o'clock, Kalisto's coming out. Kids love Kalisto, but how many kids, and I mean little kids, I mean in the elementary age, are watching Monday Night Raw from 11 to 11:15? So what did you expect when you brought Kalisto out? That should have kicked off the show. If you wanted to bring back Kalisto, kick off Monday Night Raw.
I was going to say do it.
So then the kids can see Kalisto and then they can go to bed. But for me, I want to see Rey Mysterio. I'd see Spike Dudley. I want to see something of the reason why I'm still awake.
It was an odd placement. I do agree with you, but I do see what WWE's doing there. I think that last promo where he literally ripped everybody in his cruiserweight, he like singled somebody out, like, oh, do a dance for me, boy, type of thing. He's hitting, he's kind of looking at everybody, and like then he's like, you can't touch me. Here's my little claws. You can't touch me. Like I think that was cool for the end of the show. But the Kalisto thing, I agree. If they're going to use Kalisto at that point, you are 100%, Jarod. You got to do it at the at the beginning of the show, or maybe in the middle of the show, maybe at 9:00 or something where kids are still watching. But odd placement, couldn't agree more.
All right, let's get this one out of the way. We've already mentioned this, but come on now, Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt. Like, what is going? This is why wrestling needs to take a break.
It's awful. It needs to be done. We talked about this, last week?
They're killing both of those guys. Those guys, I remember, like 2 years ago at WrestleMania, I was like, I think, maybe not 2 years ago at WrestleMania, but 2 years ago at WrestleMania, I felt Bray Wyatt could have been main eventing at WrestleMania, and I thought it would have been awesome. I thought Bray Wyatt could have probably main evented this year's WrestleMania, and he did against Randy Orton in a way, and it was awesome. And Finn Balor, obviously, he was out in injury, but I felt that if he wasn't on injury, he was going to be champion going into WrestleMania after his SummerSlam win. And, he was riding high. And you take these two guys, which 2 years ago, up until this year's WrestleMania, I felt were both every year WrestleMania caliber main event people. I wanted to see them main event every pay-per-view I saw. I wanted to see him go against everybody. They were like Brock Lesnar. They were both very good special attractions that I couldn't get enough of. And right now, I want nothing to do with either of them. Paul, what is your opinion on this?
100% agree with the same factor. When I saw, when I saw Finn Balor come out, I'm like, okay, here we go. And then as soon as they cut to Bray Wyatt, I considered castration. I considered blinding myself. I considered a lot of factors. I did none of those. Thank you very much. But that is disgusting. What are we doing here? I'm supposed to be enjoying wrestling, and literally, I feel like they're grabbing my head and shoving it in the bathtub, and they're not letting me come up for air. Stop force-feeding these crappy storylines down our throats, and I feel like you need to accept that it's not working and move on. Like the LA Chargers out there with that crappy soccer stadium, and they can't fill it. It's not working. Cut your losses and move on. You've invested a lot into the storyline, I understand, but it's time to cut it and move on. It just simply isn't working.
Let them go in different directions. 100%. I'm on board. I think we're all on board on this. I think it's awful. I think this whole thing is a detriment to not only Finn Balor, but it's a detriment to Bray Wyatt. Both parties involved. They need a new storyline. Let them go in their own directions. Let them start a rivalry with somebody else, and move on. Speaking of this new build-up, it's coming up this weekend. We'll kind of talk more about it later. I like this Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler thing. I think this has a build-up to be something really good. So I know it's a sidebar. We'll get to it later. But if you want to talk about something that could be possibly a halfway decent going forward, I think it's going to be those two.
And that's the thing. And I like first-time encounters, and I like one-time encounters. And that's why we get excited about things, because these people have never met before, and these people are going to meet. But after they've met week in and week out for, 5 months? I mean, Finn Balor and Bray Wyatt have been doing this since, June. Okay? The last time Finn Balor was pretty relevant was the last time we saw Samoa Joe in the ring, and that was back when they were all in that match to determine who was going to be the number one contender for the July pay-per-view to face Brock Lesnar.
Where is Samoa Joe?
These are good questions.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. He's not injured, is he? I haven't seen anything. Like, WWE usually announces that he's been injured or something. Like, they'll say, breaking on WWE.com. I haven't seen anything on Samoa Joe, so I'm kind of curious to see where he's been at. He's one of those guys where you definitely want him on the show. He could be, maybe they're saving him. Maybe he had a good run for a little while. Maybe they gave him a little breather, and maybe they're setting him up for a big storyline to come. That's something I can think of.
He had 2 surgeries. That's what's been keeping him out of action. And he's hoping to return very soon. He's had 2 knee surgeries.
Oh, I wouldn't have known. I had no idea. I literally, usually it comes out.
Well, because of the fact that he I don't think he got hurt in wrestling, in the sense that, you see him carried out, and, like in football.
You think it was a lingering thing then?
It was a lingering thing, and he went and he took care of it. And like I said, he quietly... I
respect it. That's cool because he doesn't want the spotlight on his injury. I get that. From what you're seeing, is it a long-term deal or?
He's hoping to come back very soon. He felt that before he got it done, since joining NXT, so way before WWE, he's felt that he's only been at 80% of his ability.
Well,
so he felt that it was time. And probably after that Brock Lesnar match, he probably didn't want to go out because of the fact that he had that big payday coming